us breaking all the rules. Started out from VA and now we on the move. From local to global, cause we got something to prove. We came from the bottom, now we at the tippy top. To hold it down for our people, cause we all we got. This a cold, cold world, but we keeping it hot. With our future on the line, ain't no time to stop. All work over here, still we having fun. Yeah, we say it like it is, ain't no holding our tongue. Go get us on the team, yeah, we getting it done. And shout out to Travell, yo, you number one. It started with a dream that turned into a vision. Now educating new generations is our mission. Ears to the streets, yeah, we steady politicking. If it ain't about to change, mind your business.
Now wait a Gam minute, wave your hands with it. Wait a Gam minute, wave your hands with it. Now wait a Gam minute, wave your hands with it. We top picks like we all up on the gram with it. Now wait a Gam minute, wave your hands with it. Now wait a Gam minute, wave your hands with it. Now wait a Gam minute, wave your hands with it. We top picks like we all up on the gram with it.
Welcome to another episode of Wait a Gam Minute podcast. Tonight, we have another special guest, as we do every week. It's like I keep saying that every week when we come on, I said special guest, sitting in the hot seat. But let me let y'all know, right? Yes, she is sitting in the hot seat. However, we know that she can handle the conversation on tonight. So we're actually going to follow her lead because at the same time, we're going to be, as we bring this information to you guys, we're going to be learning as well. So with that being said, tonight we have a special guest by the name of Lynn Godfrey, and she is with the Sierra Club. So Ms. Godfrey, how was your weekend?
It was good. I enjoyed it. I had a long weekend, so it was nice.
Okay.
Yeah, we was off yesterday. Matter of fact, celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day. So
Absolutely.
recognizing the indigenous people of this land. And as I say that, let me also give land acknowledgement to the indigenous land that was unceded where I live in Chesapeake, Virginia, the Nazman tribe nation, as well as the Chesapeake and the Cherokee Nation people's land. So I give honor to that and try to be a good steward.
I get it. I get it. Ms. Gogetta, how was your weekend?
Oh, it was chill. I didn't do much. I worked.
You worked this weekend?
Yeah.
Okay.
As I do almost every week. Well, I'm saying weekend, not counting Sunday, but yeah, Saturday. Yeah, I worked. How was your weekend?
It was good. It went by so fast, I didn't realize it was the weekend.
Yeah, I didn't want you to feel left out, so that's why I asked you.
What? You know what? Well, thank you. I really appreciate
You're
that.
welcome. You're welcome.
Absolutely. How was your weekend? You said it was nice.
Yes.
And your weekend was good.
Yeah, it was good. It was.
Did y'all have a long weekend too?
No, it was short.
Oh, okay.
It was short. It was very short. I don't know why. Like those 2 days go by so fast. You know, when you work during the week and you have those 5 days, it's like those 2 days is like a couple of hours, basically. So with that being said, Miss Lynn, we definitely want to thank you for accepting our invitation to come on Wait a Gam Minute podcast. We definitely appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. Now, can you introduce yourself to our viewers and listeners of Wait a Gam Minute podcast?
Absolutely. I'm Lynn Godfrey. I am the Just Energy Transition Program Manager for the Sierra Club Virginia chapter. And in that role, my primary role is to ensure that we stop fossil fuel infrastructure development because of its contribution to the climate crisis, as well as to promote healthy communities in what we call cumulatively disadvantaged communities. And those will be communities of color, what we call environmental justice communities, communities that are disproportionately impacted because of health, as well as economic, educational. And we want to make sure and promote healthy communities. And one way to do that is to ensure that the pollution of the air and the soil and the water is not contaminated, so that it impacts people's health and resulting in very bad diseases that we see in these communities, such as diabetes, heart disease, asthma, lead contamination, all of those things. So in the role, what I do is I do community development, community sustainable development, and we're working in Portsmouth right now, as well as doing some work in Suffolk around flooding, as well as around what we call fossil fuel infrastructure. And my role in that is to try to stop the development of gas pipelines, frac gas pipelines. And one of the primary projects that we're working on now is the Virginia Reliability Project. But we have coined it the Virginia Ripoff Project because
why is that? Yeah, definitely explain that.
Well, the activist that's been working in this role and is passionate about ensuring that we have a healthy system and healthy air and water. We think it's a ripoff because one of the things that the pipeline company has to do is get permission and permitting. So there's a permitting process, and in that permitting process, their first step, if it's a interstate, if the pipeline runs through states, different states, they have to get a federal certification. And if it just runs within the state in Virginia, they have to get a certification from the State Corporation Commission. And one of the things this certificate is called the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity. So they have to prove necessity, that is a convenience for the public, and that is a necessity. So one of the things that this pipeline developers is projecting and touting is that this pipeline is necessary because the need for natural gas in Hampton Roads in Southeast Virginia, that there is a natural gas shortage in this region.
And do you believe that?
Well, what's interesting is what we believe is insignificant, really, is what the truth is. There's two things, okay? Is there a shortage of gas in this area because it's growing? And if there is, do we want to remedy that with fossil fuel infrastructure? And what that means is, do we want to look at what we call renewable energy to satisfy that shortage, if that shortage does exist? So we know through studies, Mothers Out Front conducted or commissioned a white paper on gas shortages in the Hampton Roads region when we was working on a project for the Southside Connector. And that study showed that Virginia Natural Gas, who would be the distributor of the gas and would buy the gas and from the gas companies. I won't go into too many technicalities here, but you have producers, and then you have distributors, and you have transmissions of gas. So Virginia Natural Gas would be purchasing this gas, and what they have done historically is overstated. Their forecast has been overstated, not just by a little bit. When you do a scientific study, you have what you call margins of error. And theirs is like, they're showing a shortage that's way a discrepancy in what the industry, as well as in even what they themselves have admitted to the State Corporation Commission in one of their rates applications to increase the rates, is that they've had no shortages in I think it was 2018, they stated to the SCC that they've had no shortage in gas or curtailment in the gas production in this area. So that discrepancy exists. So like I said, if there is a need for increase in energy, we should be looking at renewable energy. And the reason that is because of the climate crisis. So these things are connected. The climate crisis is what we call, has been caused by man. Human beings have caused this by what we call greenhouse gas emissions. So historically, throughout the production of oil and gas through this country, going back to the late 1800s, for energy. I mean, let's face it, we all like lights and we like hot water. And it has contributed to some of the advancements. We can't deny that. However, when we know that something is also contributing to the most existential threat to our existence, then we have to look at, well, do we want to continue to do that? And that's where we are right now historically.
So how did you get into this? Because me just listening to you, that was like overwhelming amount of
Yeah.
information. Like, so how did you get into it? Because it seemed like you know you're very knowledgeable. So yeah, tell me how you got into it.
Well, I have always been interested in in environmental issues, littering, clean water. Those things have always interested me peripherally. I'm an interdisciplinarian, so I got into it. I have a public health background. I went to
Okay.
graduate school at Eastern Virginia Medical School and got involved in environmental health and started learning. What I thought I knew about,
Mhm.
the health, and realized that all of these things that were contributing to people that I knew in neighborhoods that I
Mhm.
knew. I knew people dying of cancer, like,
Right.
in one family, you got 5 and 6, 7 people dying of
That's
cancers,
it.
and they all living in the same neighborhood. And this was a situation when I would reflect after learning the knowledge, the scientific knowledge, I reflect that back on my lived experience.
Okay.
And so my lived experience said, oh wow, I know people that, then, South Hill, in Chesapeake, Virginia,
Mhm.
there's a neighborhood called South Hill, and that is a neighborhood that's been impacted by environmental injustice because they had all this dumping of waste material from hospitals and other things on the bank of the river there,
Oh
of the
wow.
southern part of the Elizabeth River. So you have water contamination, you have soil contamination. Neighborhoods in Portsmouth within 2 mile radius of the Norfolk Naval Shipyard has 4 Superfund sites, and Superfund sites are sites that have been deemed unlivable by the Environmental Protection Agency, the
So
EPA.
so are people actually living there though, even though they have deemed it?
Yes,
Un-
yes. Craddock, have you ever heard of the Craddock?
yes.
Right.
Craddock, Brighton, all of
Wow.
those
All those
people.
people over there.
That's right, they're living, and they have some of the high. I mean, the people there know, anecdotally, that, like, I knew,
Okay.
that, wait a minute, something is not right here. There's too
Mhm.
many people dying of
Right.
cancers here. There's too many people with asthma here. There's too many people with COPD. So
Wow.
those things we know anecdotally because we've lived them. And then once
Okay.
I've had that, so that's what prompted my interest. So I kind of put those two things together. So when this organization was, looking for someone to do community outreach around pipelines and what we call environmental justice, then
Okay.
I responded to that solicitation.
Right.
So, but that's kind of how I got interested in it, is studying environmental health and then understanding that a lot of that is man-made. You
Right.
know.
So now part of your job is to do what? Like to let people know what's going on?
hmm Part of my job is to do, right now I'm working on the Virginia Reliability Project. And
Okay.
so it's campaigning advocacy. We're doing I'm an organizer essentially.
Okay.
We're going out into the community and we're trying to stop pipelines from being built. And then on the sustainable community side, bridging that gap. Okay, we have the advocacy, but what do we
Mhm.
do after that? So we bridge the gap and go into the communities and try to develop partnerships and coalitions with community members so they can drive that process and how they want their community to have clean. I mean, I think you all made Mississippi. What
Mhm.
just happened in Mississippi with the water
Right.
contamination.
That's right.
So those things is what's happening. I mean, a lot of that is related to climate crisis, the flooding and all of those things are
I didn't know
interrelated.
any of that.
You're right. See, the climate, the sea level rise is related to the weather patterns being changed,
All
and all
right.
that's related because
Right.
of the greenhouse gas emissions,
Mhm.
Right.
specifically carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide. And
Oh
those
wow.
gases over centuries have caused the temperature in the atmosphere globally to heighten, to be
Okay.
heated. And it doesn't, it's just about a little bit, but and there's some
Mhm.
natural occurrence of that happening also. But the crisis that we're seeing now is mostly man-made, and greed has played a great deal. We have to have
Mhm.
3 and 4 cars, we have to have the biggest houses, we have to,
Yeah.
so we're at a, it's kind of, we if it doesn't touch us, we kind of forget about it. But we got to remember,
That's
we
true.
having these adverse weather, patterns.
Right.
Tennessee had a flood where a man lost twins.
Mhm.
So things, because things is happening so fast now, we get a news, we get the news, boom, bam, it's gone and it's over and people forget about it. And we just saw what happened in Florida.
So let me ask you this in layman's terms, how can we break this down to where the average individual can understand and grasp everything that you just stated?
Wow. You take people from where they are, and most people, if you go to them and you talk to them and you try to get them, because a lot of people as a country, we're just coming even not even close. We're still behind where we should be to resolve the climate crisis. And because one of the things with the IPCC, and that is the International Panel on Climate Change, and that's through the United Nations, scientists have shown we don't have time. Time has run out. We cannot be developing gas pipelines. So you tell people that this pipeline, number one, is not needed. And they say, well, okay, well, how does that impact me? How does that hurt me? Well, okay, this specific pipeline that we're referring to now called the Virginia Reliability Project, it's going to disturb, it wants to replace 48 plus miles of a 12-inch steel pipeline with a 24-inch steel pipeline. And that's a lot of pressure increase. That's a lot of pressure increase. It's coming through neighborhoods. It's coming through the Dismal Swamp. It's coming through the peninsula of Suffolk, here through where Crenton, Eclipse, and Hobson, where you already have a very bad water sewage problem. You have flooding. And those pipelines will be coming through those neighborhoods. They're coming through neighborhoods right near Hilltop. I want to say elementary. I'm not sure, but I know it's
Hilltop. Yeah,
one of the schools. Hill Point.
So this pipe is going to go through all of these areas that you just. So they're going to go digging. They're going to dig up, build these pipes to run through all these neighborhoods. But now they're going to go where there's like no houses, right?
No.
They're going to go under.
No, in this particular case, now, and sometimes they will go where there's no houses or there are houses, but in this particular project, the pipelines are already laid. They're going to replace 12-inch pipelines with there you go. They're going to double. So they tell you that's a high volume of pressure. But they're going to run through. So the old pipelines were laid like 70 years ago, and they're doing fine. So we don't want them to disturb that and put larger pipelines that would have a higher pressure.
So how are you explaining this? Like Gam was just saying. So like you go out to these neighborhoods, and how are you guys explaining this to these residents of this neighborhood to get them to understand, or to get them to even think about it, to get their wheels spinning, to even want to have some kind of concern or even care, because most people they'll be like, oh, okay, so we already have it, then what's the big deal? But I understand, they're doubling the size, so that means that's more coming through.
Well, it's the pressure of it will be high. But not only that, land disturbance, from that, as well as the emission of the gas from the pipes, the leakage. It's just, how we do that is through organizing. And what we're doing now, we are working with Hill Point residents. So we try to identify residents who have an interest. You never know. Some residents are very knowledgeable about certain circumstances that's impacting their lives, and some are not. So what we try to do is we try to find the cheerleaders, and we do massive mail outs, and we did that a couple of weeks ago, and I've had we have contacts up there. We do my organization, Sierra Club, as well as we're part of a coalition. Let me say that. We're part of a coalition that's fighting the pipeline. It's called the SAVE Coalition. And we meet, as an ad hoc of that coalition every other Friday. So what we do is we have community leaders. So right now we're working with civic leagues. We're working with the Critton, Hobson, and Eclipse Civic League. We're working with Pewsville Civic League as well as the Chuckatuck Civic League.
Okay, so,
And
all
so
the
we're
civic
working,
leagues.
and sometimes it's civic leagues, sometimes it's individuals, sometimes we're working with the NAACP. We work with, there's another community in Chesapeake, which is called the Sunray community, which is a historical Polish settlement community.
Okay.
We never knew that there was a
Polish,
Polish.
that's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
There's a Polish settlement in Chesapeake that's called Sunray. And that
Wow.
is on the Historical National Register as an agricultural farmland place. And so, see, the pipelines have to go through certain permitting and regulatory processes.
Right.
So through this process, we're trying to hold the organizations and the agencies' feet to the fire. See, because hold them accountable, we have the Clean Water Act, we have the Clean Air Act. We have laws called NEPA, which is the National Environmental Protection Act, which Donald Trump tried to, slash all the regulations away. And so we're trying to hold them. See, now these regulations weren't in place 70 years ago. So a lot of things that we know now about pipelines, we didn't know when these original pipelines were laid. So what we do is we find community leaders and we build on that, because so the pressure point now is to have FERC, and that's the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, to permit this certificate based on the three-prong factors of climate crisis, environmental justice, and necessity.
Wow.
So, so that's where we are now. So we try to develop strategies and tactics that they can give pressure to them so that they will not permit it. But usually they rubber stamp it, and then we go to court. We have litigations.
Oh, wow.
And so we have the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. You all may remember that or have heard of it. So that was fought the same way, and it was canceled in 2020. It's been 2 years now. It was canceled in July 2020. And it was canceled because of grassroots efforts. And, it's just like the civil rights movement. It started, things start. Some, you don't want to give up, Rosa Parks didn't want to give up her seat. It seems like an innocuous, type of thing to do on a day, and but it sparked the movement. Now, of course, there was a lot of things behind the scenes before she even did that. But those are the type of things. So we use tried and true organizing techniques to do a drum beat and have that drum beat kind of get louder and louder and louder and louder.
As I hear you talk, I'm trying to honestly grab it all in. And I know that it's going to take some time, but I can tell that, one, you're very interested in what you're doing. You believe in what you're doing, because those acronyms, you just can bust them down just like that. To whereas I'm sitting here like trying to remember when you said the FERC,
federal.
I thought about FUTA, like with my job, like RC, so it's
FERC, right?
Yeah, it's FEREC. It's the acronym for the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. It's like anything else. Once you work with something for so long, I've been doing it for 3 years now, but once you work with it, you'll get used to it. And just like what you all are doing here, I'm like, oh wow, the technology and all the things is fascinating. But it's like anything else, you learn the nuts and bolts of it. But that's it. So you learn the processes, and that's how we fight this good fight to try to keep communities healthy and try to keep the environment healthy. But it's a part. It's not separate from the social justice movement. It's just that we add. It's in addition to that, and it's part of that. Right. Environmental justice is part of the social justice framework, and because we are just people of color, are just indigenous people and people of color, Black people in this country, are disproportionately impacted by these. By these infrastructures, these developments. And another thing that's happening that you all probably were aware, I guess the warehousing situation that you all are dealing with here now in Suffolk. That sort. But and that's going on around the country. They're building warehouses because we are so consumer orientated that we just have to have, and that is happening, throughout. I mean, we have a community in Hampton that we are trying to work with. That's called the Wythe, depends on how you pronounce it,
Okay.
Wythe, community, and that used to be the community for the school for the deaf and blind, which was a segregated school. I had a cousin to attend there. Well, they're now, having a struggle with the city of Hampton because they want to rezone that as light industry. And you bring in light warehouse for distribution and manufacturing, fabrication. You got all these trucks coming up,
Right.
and it's just
Right.
it takes away
It don't
the
really make
the
sense.
cultural and heritage
Mm-hmm.
significance of a community, and
Right.
that has happened throughout the country. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
happened here, and that's what happens. It's things that we live with. Because because we have not known any different, and we live with these things, and we move forward thinking they're natural, and
Right.
but
Yeah.
they're not.
Yeah. Now, how we as a people, like especially like being that we're residents of Suffolk, what is it that we need to know, and can we stop what is already this pipeline, or is it already a done deal?
No, it's nowhere near done deal.
Okay.
I would like to say the Guardian, which is a international newspaper, just did a great article, and I'll share that with you all
Okay.
and they just interviewed how these pipelines. See, they know
Mhm.
how to. They targeted the Black community. They went to the Black religious leaders, and they now
Oh, yeah.
Reverend Jeffrey Guns is quoted and featured in this article from I think it's First Calvary in Norfolk,
Mhm.
and a well-known religious leader here, nationally and internationally, really. And he felt like he was being used, and he felt right because he was being used because
Right.
they know. See, now we have a law in Virginia called environmental justice law.
Mm-hmm.
So we
Oh,
fought
wow.
for that. We fought for that a
Okay.
couple of years ago. So
And explain
they
to us right quick, what is the environmental justice law?
exactly the environmental justice law is a legislation that was passed by the Virginia legislatures in 2020, either
Okay.
2019 or 2020. And what it states is that before um, gas pipelines or any type of infrastructure
Mhm.
that's going to impact communities disproportionately, that
Mhm.
those communities they have to have the involvement, meaningful involvement,
Right.
outreach to those communities,
Okay.
so they will know what is going on and what the impact to their health would be,
Okay.
and that. So we had a victory in that regard with that law in Pennsylvania County, where Pennsylvania County, where we fought the air board and won, uh,
Okay. Okay.
based on that they had not provided the disproportionate health impacts that
Mhm.
would happen to that community. But what we are right now, because we have these regulations that or that depends on which side of the political fence you sat on. We have regulations, and regulations
Right.
are good things. So right now, where we are is we have open comment period with FERC. Well, the comment period is not open, but they're still taking comments,
Okay.
and because they claim they want to be more transparent and they want to have more outreach to communities. And the FERC is going to have to develop what we call an environmental impact statement. And
Mhm.
when they do that, they'll do a draft statement, and they'll have an open comment period. And the community, and we will reach out to the community when that
Right.
happens, and they can comment on it. And that's where we are. We have to get them involved in commenting,
Okay.
becoming what we call interveners in these proceedings. Because if they become interveners, then they have impact on the resolutions, what is going to happen, what the process is going to be. They're going to be informed about what the pipeline companies are doing, how they're going to impact their land, depending on what their impacts are. So the public very much can get involved, but it does take some effort, and that's where organizations like Minds and CCAN, Chesapeake Climate Action Network, Appalachian Voices, the civic leagues, and so forth. We come in,
Okay.
and organizations like us, what we do is we have platforms where we can do we can do email alerts, what we call
Okay,
email alerts.
alerts. Okay.
That goes out to thousands and thousands. You know, we can
Right.
share them. So
Right.
we have those type of platforms and means and resources that we lend to that. So commenting, talking to your legislator, you know, unfortunately, but you know, this is the beginning of the game. The developers, they contacted a lot of Black community leaders and tried to develop an advisory committee board, touting all of the benefits that this pipeline would have. And that's what Jeffrey Guns realized he had been used, because this pipeline is not going to provide 3,600 jobs. I mean,
It's not.
They just-
How many
they
they?
just-
how
well,
many
I
might
mean, you
not?
could, you know, we can, you know, we don't know, because they have not disclosed
Put everything out.
the
Yeah.
methodology and how they
Uh-huh.
come up that it would, you know, but that's what they're saying to Black leaders. Oh, it's going to provide
Oh.
3,600, a little over 3,600 jobs. How? The massive pipeline out in the southwestern part of the state, the Mountain Valley pipeline, I don't even think provide that. And that's a 303
Right.
brand new
I
pipeline.
think
So-
they do stuff like that because they know, one, we don't.
They're not gonna
Everybody
research
doesn't
it and find
research it or read it.
Exactly.
Read it right. So they put things out there, key things out there to grab our attention. And then we're like, okay, well, they're gonna do this, but they're gonna give you this amount of money, or it's gonna open up this
they
amount
make it
of
about
jobs.
the money. Mhm.
Exactly.
And-
So that's one of the things we need to talk to our legislators, because we had a lot of Black legislators, you know, who were supporting this.
Mhm.
We need to reach out to them and ask them why. Why are you doing this to your community?
Right.
Well, you know,
Because
we
they
have,
mentioned that much, they mentioned a dollar sign, and that's basically.
but we
how
have
most
to
of
do
it go.
better
Right.
than that. We have to.
Right.
We have to look at, well, you know, I mean, at this stage of the game, you know, a big developer is going to say whatever they have to say to develop their
get you
project.
to it, right.
But at this stage of the game, because you have climate crisis, and I mean, just from that alone, we should not build pipelines.
So
Just
you-
you know, the contribution that it has on the climate crisis. See, the part it was, I think most Americans still don't fully believe that the climate crisis is real until it
It
comes
hits
to
them.
a
Right,
community.
right.
You know, it's coming to a neighborhood
Yeah, 'cause
close
I
to
say
you.
that all the time.
you know.
I said, it seems like somebody controlling the weather, controlling the temperature, or whatever. But my question to you, oh shucks,
You forgot.
You're too young. You're too young for that. You're too young for that.
okay, I just said, ooh. But no,
You'll think
I
about
was
it.
just sitting here thinking. Okay, so this is another question though. I'll think of that other one later, because you just said something that I was about to ask you about. I know I really want to know that too. But gosh, I can't think right now. But this other question I have. So at this point in the game, if they are people able to come together to get them to stop from the planning of the pipeline or stop the passing of the pipeline? And if so, let's say, for example, that, okay, they do the comments, people get involved, they speak to their, legislator, representatives and all of that. And then they decide, okay, fine, we're not going to do the pipeline. Now, you said that the representatives of the developers of this pipeline went to the leaders in like some of the communities and told them like, oh, the benefits, the good benefits, not the disadvantages. But are there any at all good benefits other than it could provide jobs? We know it's not going to be a large amount of jobs, but it can be any amount.
No, I mean, if you're going to do a benefit analysis at this point, we would say no, there's no benefit, because it's going to detriment your health. It's going to contribute to climate crisis. It's going to be disproportionately negatively impacting communities that's already at a disadvantage, and it's not needed. So there's no benefit for it. But what we're trying to do, they don't just say, I'm going to, it's protracted struggle. So ultimately what you're trying to do, they have to not be granted the permit.
Right.
So once they're
granted,
what we're trying to do now, and normally that doesn't happen, at this stage. But we could be surprised. If they do it, we will be surprised.
Right.
But but that's how we organize. So at the next strategic point of decision.
Okay.
So the next strategic point of decision is the FERC certificate of public convenience and necessity. So if FERC go ahead and provide that, which we surmise they will, they always have, then we will continue to build up evidence. We get scientific evidence. We get history and culture evidence, because the Nazman tribe, the Nazman Nation, they're a nation now. I think they were federally recognized in 2018, right here in Suffolk. Has that they're organizing, and they're asking them to do not just an ethnographic study, but an extensive, I think they call property and culture, like an assessment, and that's like it even goes, it's similar to archaeological, but they have certain procedures they want them to adhere to know that if they build this pipeline, this is the type of history and culture you're going to be decimating. We're talking about some of this is prehistoric. Like out in Pennsylvania County with the pipeline, the indigenous community there, the preservation society here in Virginia, and they discovered, this was, some of the lands were prehistoric.
Right.
Prehistoric.
I think 2018 was the year because that was Bass, the
yes,
Brian Bass father, and I know he ran for mayor a couple of years ago, and he was talking about the thing you were talking about just then about
the culture and heritage,
right.
Right. So there's a lot of historic. The Dismal Swamp carries a lot of history. You don't want them to come through, and then there's a lot of endangered species, and a lot of times you got to really understand this, and so people can understand that even though what impacts one aspect of the planet also impacts us. We live in an ecosystem. As much as we like to feel and think that, I don't have anything to do with it, that's what we'll say. That ain't my problem. But really, it is our problem. I mean, we live in a big ecosystem, and one single thing impacts the other. So that's where we are right now. But that's where we are. We're trying to get FERC to recognize that this project is not needed, and for once in probably many, many years, if ever, to deny this permit. But a lot of pipelines have been canceled, usually after the permit. But you build up evidence because there's litigation. So you have environmental, we have environmental lawyers that, like the Clean and Water Act, the Clean Water Act, which is coming up on its 50th anniversary next year. The Clean Water Act, they have certain regulations they have to adhere to, and it gets really, really technical. Those are the type of ways we hit them. So we try to keep them from getting permits.
Right. So that's the thing you're saying. So basically, although FERC normally their normal pattern is approving these permits without doing, I guess, their own research or whatever, they just say, okay, they looking at the dollar sign maybe. So then that's when like the Sierra Club and the V project, that's when all the organizations come into play, doing the research and everything.
No, not today.
Huh?
And that's when they come in and say,
right.
And that's when they said no. So there is a chance that although they give them the permit, they still can take it back.
Absolutely. Because the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, which was, very big, that was going to be a 600-mile pipeline.
600 miles. 600
miles, and it was grassroots that we got to keep drumming, and then you build up the drumming, but it was what really sealed the deal was in a little small community in Buckingham County, that sealed that deal, and because of the environmental justice, and that's
so why are these developers, like, what is the reason for these developers to want to keep trying to come up with something to do, like the pipes, go here, go there? Why do they feel like the pipes need to be updated or enlarged?
Well, that's a good question. It's profit, baby. It's profit. So we have a profit model from pipelines that's tied to the market, and they have stake and shareholders stock and
Oh.
shareholders, right? So yes, so it's about
okay.
money, and also we're thinking they want to. One of the things is do what we call LNG, and that's liquid natural gas, and export it to foreign countries for money, like and
for
using
more
the
money.
Ukraine crisis because Russia provided oil and gas to Eastern Europe, primarily Germany, and to Ukraine too. And so that's why they want say they want to fill that market to export, also to Asian markets too. They want to export to Asian markets. So I mean, it's something that we've been doing. I mean, it's an industry that's been. I mean, the whole system that we in the United States, we live on a system where the government supports corporations by and large.
Right, yeah.
And that's whether it's Democrat or Republican, they support corporations. I mean, look at the cigarette smoking, how long it took to get the
Yeah.
commercials off. How long is that type of thing? It's an industry has
Yeah.
been part and parcel of our economic system, and we just go along with it, even though we're telling it's killing people, So it's the same type of thing,
Yeah.
and it's just like wearing a seatbelt when it's like drunk driving.
Yeah.
People used to not go to jail for drunk driving.
But now,
So if it was
yeah.
grassroots, and you have, I mean, where it is all is in the legislation. You have to have the laws passed to protect the society, and that's just it. That's why that's why Trump was, he was deregulating everything, so big corporations could come on and just,
that, yeah.
So I call it people, profit, and pipelines.
The PPP.
PPP, there you go.
Yeah.
People, profits, and pipelines, and it's about profit. I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, the bottom
it
line,
is.
that's what it's about.
And that's so crazy that it's about money to them, but it can causes our health or our life.
Yeah.
And it's like you can't put a dollar on that, but we don't see that or really recognize that until, like
It's
you
too
said,
late.
it knock on our door.
Exactly. It's just like pharmaceutical companies that charge all this money until you have yourself or a family member or a friend that's impacted by having to buy expensive drugs to stay alive.
Right.
Then you
They
don't.
can't even afford that.
Exactly.
Wow. This has been very informative. Like I tell you, like I really, it makes me want to really go and really research and because I feel like we have a platform like this. Matter of fact, I'll say my comments for the end. Ms. Gogetta, what did you take away from tonight? I don't want her to take away.
You was doing good.
Right.
You was doing good. I took away from the night a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that a lot of us just not aware of. Like we looking at what's in front of us right now.
Absolutely.
And not realizing, like everybody talk about, such and such have bad drainage problems. Everybody when it floods,
When
and
it rains,
everybody,
yeah.
and everybody's talking about the drainage problems. But actually, it's larger than the drainage problem.
Exactly.
It's stuff like this, like what you're talking about, the pipes and all that stuff, that's causing.
Yeah, historically, that has
Right.
caused it. Absolutely, yeah.
But see, and on there, everybody keeps saying is, why, Norfolk or Portsmouth, so why they haven't fixed the drainage problems? They're trying to fix something, all right. It's just not the drainage problem for the flooding. So
Absolutely.
so I just like, it's just a lot in the background that we just don't know. And it's another thing of how politics plays an important part in almost every single thing.
Yeah.
Because, I just learned that from a meeting I went to a couple of weeks ago, that politics plays a large part in the entertainment industry.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
now it's like, it also plays a part in why we having flooding or why some of the neighborhoods, have these illnesses and this, that. And then the government control the prescriptions and the pharmacy and the insurance and stuff.
Absolutely.
They give you these high prescriptions, and then the insurance don't want to pay for them.
There you go.
Golly.
I mean, it's complex. It is,
right.
but in the nitty gritty, it's all connected, and it's just
Right.
I mean, it's what you're going to, what a society is going to accept and what it's not. It's just the same thing with
And
everything
that's-
else that we're dealing with. Just
Yeah.
like gun regulations, we don't
Is
want to
it-
regulate guns, but it's killing people.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I've taken away like a lot, like I said, and I really want to research a little more so that I can, be well equipped to have these conversations and just to get an understanding of what's
Right.
going on around me.
Right.
Mhm.
And that's the reason for Way to Gam Minute is to put out information that we just don't normally get on the regular. Because I've even learned listening to one of the guys that's running here locally that in the city here they supposed to send out like 2 letters, right? Before they pass something in the city. They may send one out to you. You may take it and throw it in the trash. And I may take it and read it, but I'm really not interested. So that's the only thing that they need to do.
Exactly. I'm glad you brought that point up because that's what we're talking about, meaningful outreach, the
Mhm.
environmental justice. That's not meaningful outreach.
No,
Right.
That's
not.
per functionary. I
Mhm.
did that. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we were glad to see is that the FERC commissioner, the chair of the commission, Mr. Glick, he and some of his colleagues, they toured the Gulf Coast,
Okay.
the Louisiana, Mississippi, because that's what we call Cancer Alley. That's where you have most of your oil and infrastructure, and I mean it's terrible that you got neighborhoods that's really suffering
Wow.
from those developments. But that's what you're talking about. They have to think outside of the box. If you
Mhm.
really, I mean, just it's easy to mail someone something. But suppose you can't read.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Some people
Exactly.
can't read,
Or
but they
you
may
just
be
don't get it.
interested. So you have to have more than one way to
That's
really
it.
contact
Right.
people and to
Mhm.
really get them interested. You got to talk to people more than once to get them
Yeah,
to
that's it.
understand and connect the dots and
Mhm.
realize that okay, oh, this is the way it is. Because like I said, the average person, I mean, gas is fine. They come in, they flick the lights on.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to
Cook their
think that
food, yeah.
energy, because we have developing countries where people have no energy or is very limited. So I don't want to, dismiss the lack
Mhm.
of energy, but I think the source, we really need to look at renewables
Yeah.
and move
Definitely.
forward from that.
Yeah. So I learned that the other day. So I'm just trying to, gain a little knowledge of what's going on, and I'm realizing that it's a lot.
No, it's a lot going on.
It's a lot going on.
It's
and
a
we
lot
don't-
going on for sure.
But I am appreciative that, we are, like you said, a lot of those pipelines were 70 years old, over 70 some years old, or maybe even
Yeah,
more
they're
than
around
that.
70. Yeah,
Right.
60,
So
70 years.
that we're actually involved in the process now
Exactly.
versus before, it was whatever they said, that's what it was, and we just went
Mhm.
along with it.
Right.
So I'm just glad that we are moving somewhat in the right direction,
Absolutely.
and we have people in place that can let us know what's going on and can challenge things that
Mhm.
need to be challenged.
Absolutely.
So I'm appreciative for that. But how can people find the Sierra Club and all of that good stuff?
Well, we're at virginiasierraclub.com.
Okay.
We're on Facebook, Twitter, as well as Instagram. We will. I'm at Lynn God. I'm at. If they want to email me,
Okay.
Can you have a
Yeah.
chat? You can put that in.
Mm-hmm. What I'll do, I'll tag it in there.
Right. Okay. And they can email me, and I can give them significant dates
Okay.
and tell them about the coalition meetings, how they themselves can contact FERC. I mean, that's
Mhm.
that's one of the things, being able to contact these agencies and express to them, your disapproval
Mhm.
of these type of projects, and just show them how to do that. I mean, so it's a lot. It may seem overwhelming, but that's why organizations and the coalition is around. We've been
To
doing
help,
this for
yeah.
a while to help. We have resources and a platform that the average citizen does not have, so we can
Mhm.
train them. And there is a video, a short film that just came out recently. It's called The Friends of Nelson. And it showed how they fought the Atlantic Coast Pipeline and what people need to do. Because everybody don't need to do the same thing. You're
Right.
gonna, you attack it from like I said, different angles.
Mhm.
So some folks is attacking it from, their land, eminent domain. Some
Oh, yeah.
people through environmental justice, and necessity again, like I said, showing that, we don't need. There's no gas shortage in Hampton Roads,
Right.
and if there is, it's not as at the level that Virginia Natural Gas is
Saying it is.
reporting.
Yeah.
And so different people at different levels, and we don't know everything at once. So
No.
certain things like this article that came out with the Guardian, we knew that the pipelines were reaching out to African American
Mhm.
community, but at the extent I didn't realize the
Right.
extent. And there are some pastors who realized that they were being used, and they are.
And that's exactly what they were doing too. Now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, they're reaching out to the pastors because 9 times out of 10, the Black communities they go along with their leaders.
Exactly.
Right.
The influence that the
right,
church
so-
still had.
Yes.
Because it's not, let's face it, there's not a lot of organizing going on in the Black community.
No.
And where it is going on primarily is
In
is
the
in,
church.
it's in the
At
church.
church.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
That's where you get all your
and
information.
so that's one of the things. So environmental justice is becoming a thing, and I want the African American community to realize what it is, to become part of the climate crisis movement, and because this impacts us more than anybody else.
Okay. Now, my last question to you is: how can someone get involved if they would like to get involved with one of the communities, like far as the Sierra Club or whatever, the water, whoever?
Right. Okay. They can get involved with me at Lynn.Godfrey at Sierra Club, SIERRACLUB.org. Sarah Lynn.Godfrey at SierraClub.org. That would be the best way. And then we have a coalition meeting every other Friday. I think we're having one this Friday, and I can connect them to that if they would like to attend.
That'd be perfect.
That's where we do our coordinating. So those would be the two best ways
Okay.
to get involved right now.
Now, at these meetings, would the average person be able to come and like understand exactly what you guys are talking about and what's going on, or would you guys actually like break it down to them? Because some people like, well, I don't understand it, I don't know, so they shy away from it.
Exactly.
So it's like, will you guys, when people come, like regular neighborhood folks, they're not in no other organization, they might not understand. Would you guys actually break it down? And
Oh,
say, hey,
absolutely. Yeah, because there's probably been some outreach before they attend the meeting. So it depends on how that, was contemplated. Then they'll have some idea. But yeah, we would most definitely break it down. Anything that they don't understand. I don't understand everything. Some of this stuff is very technical. I don't even try to understand. A lot of it, it's that engineer at the advanced level of engineer. And we have those people. We have, we have citizen scientists, and then there we have people who just learn, and because they realized that it was going to impact them and their land, their precious land. They learned a lot. They did monitoring, and because of the other pipeline, the Mountain Valley pipeline that we're fighting in the state. That's the one that Joe Manchin tried to make sure would get built with this. We want to go into that, but with the new bill, tag-along bill. That goes along with the government closing down, but he lost that. We did a lot of outreach so that wouldn't happen. So he wouldn't attach that bill to the government shutdown process. But that's what he was trying to do. But we did a lot of lobbying. Had colleagues who went out. We talked to Warner. We talked to Kane. We talked to the Bobby Scott. We talked to McEachin. We really went out, and that happened across the country. And they had a march in Washington, rallies in Washington back on I want to say time is moving so fast. I think it was October 8th.
Okay.
October 8th. It might have been September 8th. I can't, my mind is, but recently, very recently.
Okay.
And, that's, it's this work is a lot of work. It's not, I won't, but it's like organizing, like we did in the civil rights movement. We learned a lot of tactics. Now my organization do not engage in civil disobedience. However, there are organizations that do.
Yeah.
We will
Okay.
support them if we can, but we don't do it. We don't do civil disobedience, but there are people who do that. So there is from so many different perspectives and angles. But yeah,
But
if
it
they
all
would contact
comes
me at that email address, I would certainly get them involved.
Okay. Thank you. Well, we have enjoyed our time with you. Like I said, we have learned a lot.
Yes.
But we would like to know how your time has been since you've been on Way to Gam Minute podcast.
It's been nice. I enjoyed it because I've never been on a podcast before, so it was very interesting. I have been on panels and videotape, but not on a panel. But I like this format, and I like your enthusiasm and wanting to know how this platform can actually bring awareness to environmental justice issues, which is going to be the hot word. You're going to start hearing that. You're going to start hearing you're going to start hearing black politicians talking about environmental justice. There's a few that's been, so it's like a buzzword now. And then sooner or later, it was like climate crisis. Nobody talked about it, but now we're seeing, wait a minute, this is happening. This happened
Wait
in
a Gam
Tennessee.
Minute now.
Wait a minute. Wait a Gam Minute. There you go. Wait a Gam Minute. I mean, what happened out in, like those hurricanes last spring that covered 8 states and this, we forget things because, you have a news cycle. That cycle is gone and we forget it. But, it's really bad. The fires out in the western part, the flooding in Pakistan now. I mean, we're thousands and thousands. I mean, it's bad. We're living in a very, very, that is the greatest existential threat to our existence right now. Right.
I'm going to forget that word, I'm sure.
No, existential.
Existential.
It is extent.
Okay.
We're going to be extent if we don't stop climbing. So that's where we are. And so it's a lot, but we'll get there. We do outreach. We'll break it down.
Right.
So all of those things happen. And this is not the only setting with the organizations that we deal with. It's happening across the country. So
well, that's absolutely great. That's absolutely great. So Ms. Gogetta, any final words from you?
No, ma'am.
So with that,
I learned so much, and I still can't remember my question. And it was going to be.
You send it to me when you remember it.
It pop in my head. I'm gonna have to.
It happens to me all the time, but you're too young for that.
So with that being said, we want you guys to definitely, when you see and hear this episode, that you would share and get involved as much as you can. If you think you need to get involved, can't anybody put anything on you, but at least if we give you the information, you have something to draw on. So with that being said, we'll check you guys next week. And that's a wrap.
Good night.
This episode has been sponsored by Crocker Funeral Home Incorporated, a new tradition of quality, 900 East Washington Street, Suffolk, VA 23434, a full-service funeral home. Contact them today for all of your professional needs. 757-539-7443 is the way to go. Crocker Funeral Home.